What's up, nerds? Welcome back. Well, DC knew that you and I were waiting for it, so they have given us the next chapter in the thrilling saga that is the Bisexual Robin stories with Batman Urban Legends number 10. So, as you may or may not remember, the Batman Urban Legends series is basically an anthology series, so there are actually 4 stories in here. I'm not going to focus on all of them with the same amount of veracity, just because the 2 in the middle aren't all that interesting. So I'm mostly going to focus on the first one and a little bit on the very last one, because it kind of ties into the Christmas spirit, so let's all just sit back, take our medicine, and get ready for our headaches. So let's do this. We're going to jump, like I said, into this whole thing with the Bisexual Robin saga, and that's actually where we're sort of picking up. It actually starts out with Bruce Wayne. He's sitting there talking to Oracle as he's like patching himself up from like a knife wound and shit. And she even asks him like, how did the knife get through your Kevlar? And so he's saying like, well, I've had worse. Well, he says, I'll be ready to go back out soon. So he doesn't even tell her like how it happened. So that's when Tim Drake comes walking in, and he's saying, well, Bruce is saying if we've learned anything from the recent attacks, it's that we can't afford to leave the city alone. So he's back to his normal thing, trying to like do what he can for Gotham City after being gone for, well, he's been gone off and on for a while now. So anyway, Tim is coming in. It's like, he says, it's like he's stuck in that final night. So he's still talking to Oracle as he's trying to like stitch himself up, but then he like I guess pokes himself with like the needle or whatever. So he drops it, and that's when Robin comes up and hits this stance. What the fuck is this? Why is he standing like that? I don't even stand like that. You know what I mean? Like what is all of the like all of the hip action? It's a bit much. Like she's ready. She's ready to serve something anyway. So he's thinking to himself, like, he seemed fine at first, but this isn't the first thing that's gotten through the Kevlar in the last month, so apparently this is becoming a regular thing. Anyway, so Tim is asked him, like, if he needs help, so he goes and starts, like, trying to help him stitch him up, and he says, I think I found a case. Do you want to investigate with me? Why are you asking it like that? Like as if you just met him. You know what I mean? Or this is like the first year, like you've known him for multiple years at this point. He's over here asking like, do you want to, like maybe if you want, like, do you want to come investigate with me? Like, you know, Bruce, just ask him the damn question. So he's saying like, he may be broody, but he usually isn't this broody. So he's saying like, it'll be like old times. And then Bruce says, this have anything to do with your mysterious trip to Bloodhaven, Tim? So that's where we see why it was that he actually went to Bloodhaven. I guess they kind of do a little bit of, is this a flashback? Yeah, a few days ago back in Bloodhaven. So he's saying that things have been weird between him and Bruce. And of course, yes, he's talking to the new boyfriend, Bernard. You know, that's who he's talking to. So he's saying like, something's wrong and I don't know how to fix it. So Bernard is asking him like, that's why you're in Bloodhaven? He says, remember I told you about Dick? I hate that they phrase that question like that. I know we all call Nightwing Dick, but the fact that he just asked his boyfriend, like, you remember how I told you about Dick? I'm sure y'all have had a few conversations about that girl. Anyway, so he says that he's like, he's my older brother. He's been dealing with Bruce for longer than me. He'll know what to do. So Bernard's saying, well, that sounds tough. And he says, not as tough as dating me, huh? I hate, because it's Tim who says that, like, it's not as tough as dating me, huh? I hate people who do these, like, little humble brag type of shit, where they try to act modest, like, oh, I know I'm a problem, right? Like, it must be so hard having to do, would you shut the hell up? Nobody likes that type of low self-esteem. Have some confidence in yourself, damn it. That just goes for everybody out there, like, not even just in the story right here, everybody. Don't be that person. Don't be that meek little annoying-ass person. It's like, I know it must be hard dating me, because I'm super difficult. No, shut the hell up, and have some confidence. Anyway, so Bernard tells him, believe me, I get family drama. Been there. So Tim's just telling him, like, I'll make it up to you, I promise, and all that. And he says, Tim, don't worry about it. I miss you, but I understand. You do what you need to do, and I'll see you later. So apparently he went skating by himself, so he's out there, like, on the ice and shit, skating around as he's probably about to find someone else. That's why you shouldn't have left him, Tim. But hey, we'll see what happens. So anyway, he tells him, like, I just want you to be happy. So that's where he's thinking to himself, that's the thing, Bernard. I think I am. So why do I feel like this? Like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. So We see where apparently this is the case that they took on. They went to Gotham Episcopal Church, which, if you know anything about Episcopals, is just like new Catholic, you know what I mean? Kind of like the new Coke type of thing, where they basically keep all the same trappings as Catholics, but they have things like this: females in the clergy. So I'm going to keep my mouth shut as far as my thoughts on that, because I was raised Catholic, so whatever. So they're talking about the priest is telling them like the church has been looted a bunch of times and everything. After everything that's happened, it's as if Gothamites have turned on each other, taking what they think is theirs, scaring people away. This place is normally filled during the holidays, and Tim is saying like people aren't just going somewhere else. So she says that's what I thought, but the Gotham synagogue and the mosque, the other church, they're experiencing the same thing. The bishop wants me to close this place down, but I can't do that. We provide safe places for the folks in Gotham. If these places no longer exist, that means there are people dying on the street, starving or freezing. And so Batman's asking like, well, why did you call us? Why didn't you just go to like the police or whatever? And this is where we find out why apparently they went to Batman and Robin, because this dude is saying like, well, she called, well, what is it? He's saying they did. Well, more accurately, Mother McGregor called my husband, who called me, and I called Robin. They need someone who will help them. So I don't know who this dude is, but we have another gay person here in the book, because Tim being in the book wasn't enough LGBTQ representation. We need another gay guy who's actually married with a husband and shit.
Everybody gay!
But then he also has to throw in this little sterling gem where he says that they need someone who's going to help and not shoot them. Because remember, police bad. And I don't even like cops. But when you just randomly throw shit like that out there, I'm like, really? So y'all had people stealing stuff from y'all, and your first thought was, well, let's not go to the cops because they'll show up and just shoot everybody? Like, what? So Tim is saying, well, regards him as Detective Williams. So Detective Williams apparently thinks that cops will shoot everybody. You can't make this shit up. It's written here. This is who said that. This motherfucker right here, this gay motherfucker right here, just said the cops will shoot everybody. And he's a detective. So, alright. So he's saying, like, I don't trust the GCPD not to shoot anyone, just in case there was any ambiguity there. He wanted to make sure you knew what exactly he was implying. And then he says, people are afraid. They don't know how to be happy anymore. So you called Batman. Anyway, so Batman's asking, like, were they ever happy? And that's where we go back to the flashback where Tim went to go see Nightwing. And we see that Nightwing's actually busy at the moment. He's busy fighting Tusk. So they're trying to carry on a conversation and deal with that whole thing. So Nightwing's even telling him, like, you could have called me. Like, normal people pick up the phone. And Tim tells him, well, old people pick up the phone. And he's not entirely wrong. For some reason, young people are fucking terrified of answering the phone. I don't understand why. Maybe I'm a little bit different because I used to work in a call center, so I'm used to answering the phone regardless who it is. But people have this like major aversion to ever answering the phone. Like if people even hear their voice over the phone, somehow that's going to kill them. I don't know what it is, but I think people need to get over it. Anyway, so Nightwing is saying like, yeah, but you didn't pick up the phone. Because he told him like a text would have worked better. And Tim tells him, well, I was in the neighborhood. And he's like, yeah, because you didn't call me. You just decided to come see me. So he's telling him, like, I thought you love surprises, and Nightwing says, I super don't. So this is where Tusk is like, I'm sorry, am I interrupting something? So Nightwing's like, yeah, actually, if you could just, haul your ass to jail for me, save me a lot of time and effort. So Tim tells him, like, oh, that's interesting. Nightwing, take this. I've got a plan. So he goes to like try and take them both out at the same time, but they both jump away. And then Tim starts talking about like this whole thing that like this building or whatever hasn't been updated in years, so that he knows like where the structural weakness is and all of that shit. So we see where he goes in for the dive as Tusk is like charging towards Nightwing, and Nightwing's like, well, anytime you're ready, please do whatever it is you have planned. So he comes in, gives him like the people's elbow and shit to the face, and then as he's on the ground, that's when he's telling him like, I'll take your Tusk or whatever the hell. So Nightwing's trying to tell him like, what the hell are you thinking? And then Tusk is starting to tell him like, yeah, Nightwing's right, kid. You're in way over your head or whatever the hell. So that's when we come back over to Batman and Robin, who are standing here, and Tim is telling him, "Look, I know what you're thinking. This isn't like the kind of cases we've been on recently, with some masked idiot threatening to take over Gotham for the 10th time. Not that they'd know what to do with themselves if they did take over, but I think we could do some real good. You've been out every night running yourself ragged, and the city, it isn't getting any better." So Batman tells him, like, there's nothing that will make the city better. He says nothing will fix this city. The people of Gotham aren't just scared, they're angry, as they should be. I failed them, Tim. So he's telling him that, and of course Tim has to immediately pop off with like, well, no, you're not failing them. Like, you've literally like saved, like risked your life multiple times to help people, and you're always helping people. He says not just as a general statement, but like recently, except it's never enough. After all the stuff with Scarecrow and the Magistrate, you were fine, good even, for you, but then you went back to how you always are, like the win didn't matter. So if the win didn't make you happy, what will? So that's where we see like a giant mob of people who are coming up, because apparently they've decided they're going to take whatever they want from this church. So yeah, y'all definitely look like the good people. Anyway, so they're coming up ready to do what they want, and then Tim looks over at Batman. He's like, Batman? So we come back over to the flashback once again, and then once he feels like, all right, everybody's in the right position, he tells Nightwing to hit it, so he presses the thing that he gave him. And that just sets off like a giant explosion, which basically knocks out Tusk and everything. So mission accomplished. And then so he's saying like, well, do we just leave him here? And Nightwing tells him, well, I normally go and, let the police know that there's, someone they need to come pick up or whatever. Just kind of makes it easier. So he's saying like, that sounds like, he says they know to bring the Tusk truck. And then Tim tells him, like, well, that sounds like Penguin's Arctic Roller or the Riddler Mobile, to which Nightwing's like, yeah, I don't miss those. So he's telling him, like, all right, quit avoiding the topic. What was so important you had to come talk to me instead of just talking to Batman? So he's telling him, like, ever since that night, well, he was normal at first, happy even for him, but then, I don't know, it's like he fell back into a hole and I don't know how to get him out of it. So Nightwing's just, no. Absolutely not. And he's like, what? I didn't ask you anything yet. But he says, look, I already wrote this book. Bestseller, book of the month, celebrity book club, the whole thing. It didn't matter. He says, I've already done everything I could to try and make Bruce feel better. I've always done what I can to try and draw him back from the edge. But every time I do, he's happy for like a week. And then he goes right back to being on the edge. So I'm just done. I'm not dealing with it anymore. He tells him, look, Tim, there's nothing I can do for Bruce, and that took me a while to accept. We can't make him be happy. I love Bruce, he's my family, but I couldn't bring him out of the past, and after a while, I realized the longer I spent trying to get him out of the past and into the present, I was sacrificing my own future. I don't want that for you. I know you've gotten comfortable going back to being Robin while Damian is out of town, but he's earned that name now, and you deserve your own future. So I'm actually kind of glad that they put that in here, because it seems like it doesn't matter how many times I try to offer a logical argument, people will only ever go back to, oh, but in the panels in the comic, Nightwing said that he thinks everyone else should be Shut the fuck up. See, right here he's even saying like, I know that you've gone back to being Robin, but it's time for you to have your own future. It's time for you to do your own thing. So it's time for you to have your own identity that's separate. Go back to being Red Robin with your better costume instead of still doing this Robin shit. Anyway, so he's saying, like, trust me, Tim, at some point you have to set yourself free. So that brings us back to the present, and, oh, God, this part, just prepare for this, right? Because we have these people who are coming up, they're all basically armed with just various weapons, right? Batman and Robin swoop down right in front of them. And then they're trying to figure out, okay, what's going to happen? Because the guy's saying, you don't scare us. We've been through hell. What can you do to us? So Tim even says, like, Batman, you're not okay. You shouldn't. He just kind of like brushes him off. And then this happens. Are you ready? Are you sure? He gives him a hug. He goes up and gives him this hug. See, when I saw it, I was like, oh shit, Batman's about to go and like threaten him, be like, if you don't want to like get on my bad side, you're going to leave right now. Figure things out a different way. This is not the answer to this type of thing. No, he gave him a hug. He gave him a hug. And apparently that was convincing enough for everybody to be like, oh, you do care. Apparently that's what everybody was waiting for. So he says, you're right, you've been through hell and I couldn't stop it. I can't save the past, but there are people we can save now. So apparently that was enough. So then they decided to go and do like outreach, I guess, to the homeless. Because even though all of these people just said, yeah, we're suffering and shit, they're like, oh, let's go and find homeless people to help. because that'll put food in our stomachs. I don't even know what it was they were here to get. So anyway, they go over and Tim is thinking to himself, like, my dad always kind of told stories about Batman. I think that's why I always looked up to him even before, like, I was working with him and all that shit. So he says, he may be broody, he may have more demons than Dante, but he won't give up. There will always be a new crisis. I can't stop that. There will always be something that brings him close to the edge, but he will never stop trying. So he says, where were you able to get the money from? And he says, I may not have money, but I'm still Bruce Wayne. So he's able to put together this whole, like, large feast for all of these people. So they're able to feed a whole bunch of people. And then he says, like, you called Selena, didn't you? He's like, well, I have other friends. And he says, Bruce Wayne has other friends. You have a basement full of computers. So he says, that's not all I have. Nightwing called me. He's right, no matter what happens to me, you're allowed to be happy. So this is where they go and they finally have the little, I guess, coming out talk where he's saying, like, well, Bernard was a friend of yours from school and everything. And then he tells him, right, yeah, I think I've always kind of known. No, you haven't. No, you haven't. Oh, God. I mean, it's hard to have personal enlightenment when you're battling supervillains in tights every night. If anything, that should have told us even more, maybe, but he was still dating chicks and he never had a gay thought in his life. And we can see his thoughts, but apparently now he somehow always knew, but nobody else ever did. Not even us, who should be able to see exactly into his mind. So he's saying, like, I'm aware. And then he asks, like, what about Stephanie? He says, well, I think we're due for a very long talk. But he makes me happy. So Bruce is just like, good. And then he says, thanks, Batman. I know we don't do gifts, but I made this for you. It's to help if you get hurt and none of us are there to help stitch you up. And then he says, like, you don't have to try to help me. You don't have to try to make me happy, Tim. I am happy because you're my son. So again, I guess everybody in this book is gay now. Anyway. So then Oracle gets on the horn and says, all right, take a look. It's not the real one. GCPD still has it shut down, but I pulled some strings. I can keep it up for about 5 minutes. And so we see where she lights the bat signal and he tells him Merry Christmas. He says Happy Holidays because he's a heathen. Anyway. So they do that, and that's how this story ends. So I guess we'll find out, because it says Happy New Year, especially for all the Tim Drake fans who will see him more in 2022. So we'll see what that means. Anyway, like I said, I'm not really going to go over like these middle stories. This one has to do with Tweedledee and Tweedledum, but Tweedledee has like gotten very sick. He's basically on the verge of dying, and Tweedledum is trying to help him out, but he's the dumb one, so he can't really figure it out. It's this whole thing. It's actually a very depressing story, I'm not going to lie. So that's why I'm not really going to cover it. And then we have this whole thing with Azrael. Kind of an interesting story. It deals with like religious themes, Knights of Templar, because he's part of the Order of Saint Dumas, and then he runs into this other chick who apparently is also a descendant of a very particular Templar. So she was tasked with like destroying all of the Lazarus technology and Lazarus material or whatever the hell. So they kind of fight, but she proves to him like she has no fear or anything like that, and so that just kind of causes him to doubt his faith. He goes back to that dude who's dying, and then he just kind of like is there talking to him like, how do we know it's enough? And the dude tells him like, well, it has to be enough. He's like, you're right, it will be. So that's how that one landed. And like I said, I just very quickly skipped over them. So let's get to the very last one. I'll go through this one kind of quickly too, because it's just, like I said, it's a Christmas story, but they went for like a very common trope that a lot of Christmas stories do nowadays. So we're starting out here. It's the shopping season, so of course people are being very acerbic. And this one is actual, like this chick over here apparently took this game station, because you know how it is with game consoles. She took the game station. The redheaded chick is like, oh no, you stole that from my basket. And she's like, well, yeah, you weren't paying attention to your basket, so it got pinched. So... and that's when she like pulls out a knife on her or whatever. And then Nightwing comes up and takes away the lady's knife. And for whatever reason, the one who almost got knifed to say like, hey, give her knife back. And then she's saying like, he's not a creep, he's Nightwing. Hey, Nightwing, give me my knife back. So apparently this is where Nightwing is talking about like, this place is the worst. If it helps, I don't want to be here right now either, but I can't let the locals knife one another over game stations. Even if I'm not really even in the Christmas spirit this year, things feel so different. Pieces are missing. People are missing, because he's still mourning the loss of Alfred. So he's saying like, as bad as things are, they're about to get worse. So this is where he's saying like, Scarecrow's gang is basically out there trying to make a name for themselves ever since like Scarecrow got taken down. They're trying to prove basically to him or to whoever that now they hold some sort of influence. They can actually do something. They can get shit done. So he goes to like try and apprehend them as the shoppers are still getting out of hand inside the store. But then all of a sudden the guys come in and they start like spraying the fear toxin at everybody. And so he's kind of like explaining here some of the elements of fear toxin are water soluble, and you can get a lot of it out of the air if you have a sprinkler system. So that's what he does. He kind of like activates the sprinklers and shit so that way he can kind of like take care of it. And then while he's doing all of that, Oracle gets in touch with him because apparently he was supposed to come and eat dinner with them, but she's saying, like, you're running late and you've been avoiding all of our calls. We're making ham. So he's like, sorry, Oracle, working. She's like, it's Christmas Eve. He's like, well, I mean, hey, nobody told these guys. They're out here working on Christmas Eve too, the criminals. So she's asking, well, she tells him, like, get over here. And he says, like, not ready. Haven't done my Christmas shopping yet. She's like, no one cares. Just get over here. Stop working. He's like, well, you're working right now. She's like, no, I called you on a work line because you're ignoring all of our calls on your personal line. So this is the only way for me to get in contact with you. She says, half our family started suiting up when you missed the first call. If I couldn't get a hold of you, Calendar Man was about to get his dates rearranged. So she hears where he's like coughing and shit, and he's telling her like, yeah, well, it just, there's some fear toxin, but I can handle it. It's not that big deal. So she's saying, like, are you coming to Christmas Eve, or do we have to suit up and get down there? He says it's all the way in Fort Grave. She's like, you're in Bloodhaven. You have to get on the highway either way. So he's just like, well, shit. And she's like, well, did you hear me? Promise me you're getting on the highway right now. He's like, okay, yeah. So he says he promises, and then he takes off, and he's basically explaining here, like, I know I'm usually the one who's like full of holiday spirit. I've even been accused of having too much holiday spirit, and it's just kind of showing like different family pictures they've taken. He says, I guess I'm just not feeling it this year. It doesn't feel the same. The manor's gone and Alfred's gone. Scarecrow's most devoted are desperate to make a statement in his name, which explains why this baby is headed to Gotham. Someone stopped in at the B-Mart just long enough to refuel and commit some light seasonal terrorism before hitting the holiday road. So this is where he goes and he like busts out the window and shit, and the dude inside is like, what the hell? So he manages to go in there, he like punches him out and shit, and then he has to figure out what to do with the truck. So he's saying, Merry Christmas to me. Now I have to deal with a tanker full of fear toxin. You can't just pour this stuff down the sink. I need to get a chemical analysis before I do anything. So he decides to go over to Wayne Manor and go do some like old school analysis on it, because he's even saying like the machine I'm using, it's basically just like what with a few D cell. No, he says it's some sort of chemical centrifuge from way back when. It doesn't even have an internal CPU. It's like a rock tumbler with a calculator on it. But with a few D cell batteries, it'll give me the chemical analysis I'm looking for without alerting any of my nosy family members. If you don't mind the terrible noise, it'll eventually spit out what you need. So he starts getting the results from it, but then all of a sudden he hears a noise, so he's like, oh shit, either somebody from the family is here to find me, or they found their way here, or it might just be teenagers. So he runs out here and he's like, well, if it's teenagers, they're easiest to deal with. If it's the criminals from Scarecrow's gang, then I don't want them to know there's a Batcave here. So he runs out and he's even saying, like, it's beautiful all the time, even right now with it all being dilapidated and full of snow. So he immediately gets tackled by Batgirl, but he's immediately also says, you're not actually Barbara. Because Barbara said she would never wear that costume again, and she wouldn't be out here with her spine condition. But on the costume thing, he's like, yeah, I even asked if she would ever wear that again. She said no. So she's saying, like, get up, Boy Wonder. And he says, why did you jump me? You can't be here. And she says, you have never successfully told me what to do in your life, not once. I'm trying to show you something. So this is where, like I said, they do the common trope of, like, the whole, like, what is it? Night Before Christmas type of shit, like with the Ebenezer Scrooge and all that, where he has the three ghosts. So he's telling her, like, you're not Batgirl, and this is not a part of Wayne Manor, because he looks and sees, like, oh, that's the Teen Titans. Like, this is from, like, the Titans Tower, which he's saying, like, that tower doesn't even exist anymore, because, we had a lot of enemies, and it was T-shaped, so it was a very obvious target. Anyway, she's telling him, like, pay attention. These are the Titans. Well, back when I was one. We all lived here. There's Cyborg, and wow, look at Starfire. And yeah, look at Starfire. So he's saying, like, holy ex-girlfriend, and Barbara's like, watch it, even though she's not really there. So they're kind of talking about Dick and how he won't come out of his room. He's over there just moping and shit. She's been trying to, like, talk him out of his room. And then Cyborg is telling him, like, come on, Corey, you're big and strong enough to pick him up. Why don't you? So she's saying, like, well, can someone please go, try and reason with him and shit. And then she says, like, we're doing winter karaoke and everyone left your favorite song for you. So he's over there, like, all pissed off on the bed. He says, like, no one even tried to call Batman, Alfred, like, nobody called. He's saying like they don't care or whatever. So he's saying, well, Batman, he kind of understands. He's always been a little bit of an ass, but he's even more offended that like Alfred didn't try to call. So Cyborg says, Dick, you talked to Bruce a few days ago and things were fine. He's probably just busy. So he's like, well, it's Christmas Eve. And he says, yeah, and he's got a little kid around again. So he's over there saying like, okay, I've seen enough. I don't know what that was all about, but I'd like to leave that party. I didn't even want to be there once and I'm there again. No one should have to see themselves at that age. So she's saying like, I disagree. You should. There are many things you have to see, Nightwing, for it is through me you can look into Christmas's past and know the weight of regret. So he's like, oh, okay, so you're my guilt. So she says, I'm the spirit of the past. If that makes you feel guilt, so be it. And then he looks down because they're now floating in the air. He's like, Jason Todd? Like, what is he even doing here? And he says, he never came to see me at Titan's Tower for Christmas either. She's like, well, did he? She says, perhaps he realized that Christmas wasn't the same without you. Or at least that Alfred and Bruce must have felt empty without you around. So he's like, that's what he freaks out. He's like, what am I standing on? She says, nothing. So that's where he sees, he falls down in the background, which is actually kind of funny. But Jason's standing there, is like, come on, Dick, like, give me a sign or something that you're here. And then he says, what was that? No weird stuff. I know Dick's friends with Demon Girl now, but invisible shit is not cool. So Dick tells her, like, he's not able to see me or, like, comprehend that I'm here, or can he? And she's like, nope, not at all. So he says, I had no idea he came to see me that night. And she says, he was waiting to see you at the windows before he found the courage to go up and knock, but you never came out of your room. And he's like, oh, because I was waiting for Bruce to call. So she's saying, and why didn't Bruce call, Dick? He says, well, Jason now says, because he was worried sick about Jason. So he's like, God, I really like ruined that night because yeah, Jason went looking for him and then they panicked about Jason. So that was why he didn't call. And we see this thing where Batman was trying to go and look for him, but Alfred wouldn't let him take his cowl. So he was like, no, you're not going out there and all that shit. So he's saying like, all right, I get it. Can we leave now? And then they get back to the manor or whatever. And then he realizes, okay, she's gone. But the the Scarecrow guys show up and they start like trying to gas him and shit. So he starts fighting. And again, he mentioned it earlier, but he's saying again now, whenever they gas me, even if it does take an effect, it doesn't last very long because I've been exposed to this shit for so long. No matter how strong it is, it just wears off pretty quickly. So that's where he's realizing, like, okay, all of these delusions, these hallucinations, it's just due to the fear toxin. That's all it is. So the next one shows up and it's actually Stephanie. Spoiler. So he's like, what the hell? Like, what are you? Well, yeah, she's obviously the ghost of Christmas present. So she's here to show him, like, look, this is what's going on because you're not there right now. Like, everybody's just, like, panicking. They're worried about you and shit like that. And they're even waiting for you because they don't want to do the Secret Santa until you show up. So Barbara's saying, like, we're already missing enough friends this year without letting people just opt out. And so Spoiler says, like, do you think Bruce is going to go out and drag him back by the ear? She's like, no, I think. And then she gets cut off by someone else saying, like, could you please come in here for a moment? I'm pretty sure it was Bruce. So they're like, oh, shit. And she's like, oh, great. Maybe I spoke too soon. So he's asking her, why are you showing me this? I get the point you're trying to make. If I don't go to Christmas at the Brownstone, I'll ruin it this year, just like I ruined it back when I was an overly emotional Titan. So Spoiler, or the ghost of Spoiler, saying like, yes, exactly. Look, even if I'm not making any good points, consider this. The fact that I'm able to manifest as such a robust hallucination means the concentration of fear gas you're dealing with is, like, massive. You really should not have gone in alone, Ditz Grayson. So he's like, all right, yeah, you know what? I don't need the commentary from you, Stephanie, or whatever. But he starts trying to fight back, and yeah, like I mentioned, he's saying, like, yeah, no matter how strong this stuff is, it starts to wear off me pretty quickly. So he starts fighting back against them. It's kind of getting the upper hand with them. And then he's saying, like, do I have a backup ventilator in this mask? And he's like, yes, I do. But does deploying it mean that I'll probably end up alerting Barbara and letting her know exactly where I am, even though I'm avoiding her? He's like, also, yes. So he's saying, so I gotta get out of here. These guys are desperate to make a new name for themselves tonight, in the absence of Scarecrow as a leader. The Christmas Creeps, the Ginger Dead Men, the You'll Be Sorry crew. So he's saying, what am I doing? Helping them with their marketing? Steph was right. I shouldn't have gone in alone. And then he's like, wait, what am I saying? That wasn't really Steph, right? It was just a ghost. No, not a ghost. He's like, a spirit? Because he turns around and sees Cass now. So he's even more freaked out and saying, like, I have no idea what's real or not. Babs was right. She's right. So Castor, or the ghost of Castor, is telling him like, my brother, I've come to collect and everything. And so she's the one who's supposed to show him like the vision of the future, and basically tells him like, yeah, in the future I come from, you did spend all night fighting against them, and then eventually you succumbed to the fear toxin and them, and you died. And we spent every Christmas for the next like however many years always going out to try and get revenge for you in your memory, always doing this. So she says Christmas was a night for war. No one felt like celebrating. Not when Christmas was the night you died. So she says we spent every Christmas night after that defending the city, seeking revenge for you. So he's like, starts freaking out when he sees his gravestone. He's like, no, like this isn't what I wanted. I never meant for it to go like this far, for it to ruin y'all's entire future too. So he's saying like, my family, our family, we've lost too many already. I need to be with them, but I have a duty. We have to have tonight to be together. So that's when he turns around and sees like she's gone. So he's like, okay, well, I don't hear anything from them anymore, but I don't trust my senses either, so let me go check. When he comes over, he sees they've all been knocked out, and there's like a message scrawled on the wall that says, Merry Christmas, Nightwing. You love, your Secret Santa. So we say, like, this whole thing that just happened, that's more of a Cassandra Cain move. So one of the guys is like mumbling into like a gag or whatever, I guess. And he says, hey, don't talk like that. It's Christmas Eve. I'm going to get out of this dump to try and get some time with my family, but thanks for nothing. So he just takes off and like he goes, once the cops show up, he goes and takes like a cop bike and takes off, which not really a cool move either, but whatever. So he takes off to go see them. He says, money is good, but you don't need money to help people. All you need is time. So what better gift for the people I love more than anything in the world? My time. This time of night, everyone in the neighborhood is asleep with visions of sugar plums in their heads, so I can get away with using the front door in costume. So he goes up, knocks on the door, and he announces himself as Calendar Man, and says he has Nightwing as a hostage or whatever. So they come out, Barbara immediately hugs him, says, nice try and all that shit. And then Stephanie is saying, yeah, don't try and play it off like you were always on your way out here. We had advance notice of your change of heart. So he's like, wait, what do you mean? And they say, Cass insisted she go out and pick you up a last-minute Secret Santa gift, and then radioed that you'd been out without your ventilator and she was going to clean up the mess as your present. So he's like, oh, so then it was you. He's like, Merry Christmas, Cass. Like, thank you for that or whatever. It's one of the best gifts I've ever gotten. She says, better than another pair of headphones. So he says, the house doesn't smell like Alfred's cooking. For a moment, it really throws me. He says, so we make new traditions. Someday when I see him again, I'll tell him about them. And that's where it leaves off with a little happy holidays or whatever. So, like I said, it just kind of relied on that very tried and true trope, I guess, of the whole, like, three ghosts of Christmas. That whole thing, I mean, very Dickensian. And then it also had a little bit, or I said Dickensian, but you know what I mean, Charles Dickens. But like it's very much that. And then they also kind of threw in a little bit also of the like the whole It's a Wonderful Life type of thing, like what if you'd never been born, almost. That's kind of like what the future was like if he's not around, things would have just been terrible. So I don't know, it kind of blended both of those together, and in a way it was mildly entertaining, I guess. Not that great of a Christmas story, because like I said, it just kind of relied on stuff that, if anybody wants to write a Christmas story, that's like one of the easiest to do. It's a very common thing, like, oh, the three ghosts, past, present, future, that whole thing. Show them what it's like if they'd never been born, that whole thing. So I would have liked to see something more original, but well, it's that time of year. People go for the cliches. I guess it's fine. So there wasn't a whole lot for me to talk about from here, other than, like I said, that first and last story. And the whole, like, bisexual Tim Drake thing is just, it's not entertaining. And it's very cliche. A lot of it is just really, I don't know how any other way to put it. It's just dumb. It really is. Like, it doesn't make any sense. The way that they're going about it is so maudlin. It's just packed with so much nonsensical emotion that it makes it almost, it's just cringe. It's just cringe to read it. It really is. Other than the jokes that I'm able to make about it as I'm going through the story, there's nothing else really for me to enjoy in there. You know what I mean? But I don't know. That's all I have to say on this. I could go on longer, but there's no point. Just, if you have any thoughts out there, do feel free to share them with me down in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like the video, make sure you're subscribed and you've hit the notification bell. And then if you'd like to share out the video, you know how much I would appreciate that. It'd be a very nice gift to me this holiday season. But if you're done here, then go and read a book. It could be this one if you want. I don't really care. But if not, then I will see you on my next video.